Hello, everyone, and welcome to the host as guest. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by my friend, Jenny Tockel, who is the CEO and founder of Salina Suites. Jenny, how are you?
Hello, Leo. I am good. I'm a little chilly today, even though I'm in North Texas right now. It usually is warm, and it is like 62 degrees out right now.
62 degrees sounds wonderful, Jenny. I'd love to be in 62 degrees. I'd be wearing a t-shirt and a pair of shorts if I was in 62 degrees, my friend.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm definitely already starting to get my fall bundle up going, as you can see. So.
I know that Salina Suites operates out of Frisco, Texas. That's your market. But Correct. You have a tech background that really weds you to Seattle. Before you tell us, well, you'll lead into telling us how you got into the short-term rental industry. Tell us about that tech background.
Yeah, so I am actually originally from Northern California. I was born in Silicon Valley, the king of tech, and we moved up to Seattle multiple times throughout my grade school and high school years. Stayed up there in high school, and so I ended up going to high school and college in Seattle, and ended up going to Microsoft at the ripe age of 20 years old. I started right at the end of 1999, literally January 2000. Yeah.
And how long did you spend at Microsoft?
A little over 2 decades. I left as a full-time employee at my 13-year anniversary, but came right back as an independent consultant for another 5 years, and turned them into one of my number one customers, as a matter of fact.
Now, here's the truth, Jenny. Have you ever really officially left Microsoft? Will you ever officially leave?
Probably not. Actually, that's a really good question. I still find myself today, we comes out of my mouth a lot. I am still a Microsoft alumni, so I will be a lifelong alumni, which has its own benefits like still software discounts. So my business actually runs off of Microsoft Office. It does not run off of Google like most other small business owners do.
So it's good to know, Jenny, that you're the person I go to when I'm trying to renegotiate my Microsoft Office contract. Good. Okay. I've always wanted to have someone for that. So the reason we mentioned the tech background is most people in the property world come from it from either being in real estate or property management. That's their angle. And then the tech side of it is something they have to learn, and they build a tech stack. You've kind of come from it the other way around.
Yeah.
Do you think that's been quite important in how you've set up your business?
I think so, actually. Being literally born and raised in the heart of Silicon Valley, of the start of majority of tech, right? I've been raised around tech my entire life. Most of my aunts and uncles are lifelongers at IBM, Apple, large tech companies that have been around for a long time. So one of the things that has been really a blessing for me since I've come over here actually is having a strong tech background. It's allowed me to see kind of the reality of the technology that is in our industry. A lot of our technology that we use in our businesses and that's been built for our businesses today are homegrown. And what I mean by that is people that came from within the industry have built them versus somebody with a true technology background coming in and building them. So there's a lot of frustrations that I personally find and many others find as well across the industry of the inability for some of the tools to be able to scale or be able to talk to each other. And unfortunately, that just realistically comes down to a lack of ignorance and really understanding how the backbone of technology really works. I've had a lot of conversations with different companies about, why don't you allow APIs or accessibility, migrations, integrations into other platforms? And some of them, I've literally heard responses of saying, oh, well, if I give somebody an API, they're going to have access to my entire infrastructure and, things can go so crazy. And I'm like, that's not really a thing. So, I can understand the concern, but if you, take the next step and actually go get educated more in understanding how the interactions that, work, how you build them securely, things of that nature, then that fear could actually be dampened down a lot. But I haven't seen a lot of companies really take too many more steps that way.
Tell us why you made the jump into property management and the journey to building Salina Suites.
Yeah, so it was sort of an interesting thing that just kind of happened out of frustration, out with one of my best friends that got me into this industry. As a matter of fact, it's the story that I tell in my Hospitable Host story that I published in Volume 3 earlier this year. It was really a girlfriend of mine, really close friends doing very similar work in technical PM type work in technology. We were in San Diego about 6 years ago, out at dinner one night having drinks, and it just seemed to be an ironic moment where both of us at the same time frame were looking at our phones, and both had received text messages and seen messages on social media from friends of ours saying, oh, I'm out of the corporate grind, I'm off to do this thing, screw the corporate world, I'm out of here, I finally got my thing, and I'm just starting this business. And we're like, man, like, this is so, like, it seems like everybody's just this rolling out of corp left and right. And like, when is the thing that speaks to us going to happen? Like, when is it going to come for us? I've been an independent business owner majority of my life. My, family has owned restaurants and different types of businesses, different types of things. And just never anything has really jumped out at me that was just no nonsense. Okay, cool. This makes sense. I want to jump into this. So it was about 7 months or so after that evening that we had together in San Diego, she called me up and she was like, hey, I think I figured out the way. I think I found the thing that's going to speak to us. And I was like, okay, what did you find? And she's like, it's called short-term rentals. It's just like, check it out. I got on with a coach that I invested into. So I went and checked out her coach as well. I invested into the same coach. As it turns out, he seems to be one of the most common coaches that a lot of people in the industry also learned from as well, I found out. So I spent a year invested into getting educated with a one-on-one coach with a full 6-month long program of classes 5 days a week to really learn the industry. And then I decided to jump out and become my own target market after dealing with frustrations of not having right accommodations. I traveled the globe for over 2 decades, domestically and international, and it always seemed like I had to hack my space somewhere, whether it was private accommodation or a hotel. I was always having to hack the space somehow to make it truly comfortable for me to be able to work while I was there. And one of the things that came true to me over the years of traveling is that unless you are a technology traveler or work very closely with technology travelers and understand kind of how we travel and how we travel differently, you can't really accommodate them. People try, but they don't. It's actually a big fail and a frustration of mine that I still run into today when I go and look at private accommodations or hotels. A large amount of them still to this day don't really provide true comfortable working accommodation.
With that in mind, just because I'm obviously, my accent gives it away. I'm not from the United States of America. I couldn't blend in if I tried. Why Frisco, Texas?
So that actually ended up coming unplanned, as a matter of fact. So when I stepped out of corporate, or was getting ready to plan to step out of corporate, I was in Seattle still. My boyfriend at the time that I was dating, he was originally from Texas and had moved up to Seattle. So we had met up in Seattle. He started having some things go sideways with his business in Houston and in Dallas, and we were traveling down a lot from Seattle. And over about 6 months, we spent about 70% of our time in Texas. And so I was like, you know what, we're burning way too much money between hotels and apartment rent and, being here and not being there. So why don't we just pack it up and stay in Texas for however long we need to be here, get your business righted, right? I was working 100% remote still in technology. So that's what we ended up doing. And after I got here and realized that real estate is, for those of us from the West Coast, that it feels like it's practically free in Texas. I would, the same amount of money, I can actually open and scale immediately here in Texas over in Seattle. So I kind of did the analysis over the area, kind of looked and discovered that Frisco, Texas is very similar to the Seattle area, in that it's the high end suburb of Dallas, if you will. We're about 30 miles north of Dallas proper. And it is a very similar area to the Redmond, Kirkland area where I come from in Seattle. It's all high end luxury, retailers, high end housing, and then also all of the tech companies and medical companies are primarily out of there. That's where a good majority of them are based, and a lot of open real estate. So I started looking at projects and things, and there's about 500,000 acres of open real estate that is in the process of being built that is 100% commercial and medical, all in an area. So I decided to set my goal to get in each end of Frisco. So I'm in the north and the south end, 5 miles apart off of one tollway, literally right off the tollway off of each end. And so it puts me right in the heart of 100% of my target market now, which is why we are now focused solely in Frisco strategically with our new rebrand going to Salina Suites.
Amazing. So logical. How do you, what method do you use to acquire? Do you buy, do you manage, do you arbitrage?
So we arbitrage. Yeah, because we do multifamily. I specialize in premier and luxury multifamily properties. Most business travelers like myself, they are not looking for houses when we travel. I'm not looking for a home. I'm looking for, an accommodation. If I'm going to be gone longer than a week, I'm looking for an accommodation that is like home away from home, so that I can keep in my same routine, do my meal prep, things like that, which you can't really do in a hotel without at least a full kitchen, fridge, a refrigerator that holds, more than a 6-pack of beer or pop, a freezer that holds more than, a tiny little pint of ice cream, that doesn't even stay frozen. So, that's typically what we're looking for, and things that make your life easy to use. So, all of our properties offer full amenities, and our luxury properties offer resort style amenities that are really amazing, even with such as like on-site spas for haircuts, massages, things like that. Multiple different, full-fledged gyms that are open 24/7 so that our guests can serve. Our medical travelers sometimes work in the middle of the night. They work the graveyard shift. They don't work during the day. Some of our people, do opposites. So we try to ensure that our accommodations provide pretty much what our guests need at all times.
I love it. And talk to me about the arbitrage model in this case. How long would you recommend taking a contract for? Is it 12 months? Is it 5 years? Is it however much you can get your hands on?
Yeah. So ideally I try to shoot for 3 to 5 year leases if I can get them. It depends on obviously the owner and the property management company. A lot of the REITs have a standardization of anywhere from 12 to 18 months that they'll fix no matter what. So we ink as long as of a lease as possible. So at my luxury property right now, actually all my properties right now, as a matter of fact, we do have 18-month leases. And we get those, we try to renew them as long as possible. And some private owners that we've dealt with when we first started a few years back, we were able to get 3-year leases out the gate, which were great. They're nice. It's just it's a conversation, and depending on what the current property owner or management company with their current strategy is in their model.
So we know who your main target guest is. Is it fair to say that you also have gaps that you use other channels for? Like you probably do, but or are you pretty much able to exclusively just get your corporate traveler into your accommodation?
Yeah, so we do use channels. We can't discriminate if you are not a business traveler and you land in our units, right? That would not be legal. So we do still get some tourists and consumer travelers, which is fine. That's just not who we target our marketing, towards, and design our units towards suiting, but they're suitable, for all, with the exception of people with small children. So we are on all the main channels where we utilize Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Google Vacations. And then we're also on some smaller and private ones as well. We do have a lot of people that relocate or are coming and stay with us for a few months at a time. So we do about 50-50 short-term and midterm, as a matter of fact. So we do an outreach to local businesses as well, where with our new rebrand and moving to Salina Suites, our goal is to get more B2B business going. So we actually have a current campaign right now where I have a business development rep that's starting to outline that plan and reach out to local businesses for us to offer housing programs and custom housing programs. And outside of that, we do also advertise on and partner with the other insurance platforms and large housing platforms such as United Corporate Housing, ALE Solutions, and things of that nature.
Very interesting. How much do you have to hustle? How much do you have to work it to win these types of relationships? Like, or sometimes do these bookings just come from Airbnb and then it's about retaining the relationship as opposed to winning it?
So at this point, we're on a real big push for direct booking, and we're about 20 to 30% OTA dependent. So not as many of them. We try to do as many conversions as we can safely and comfortably with guests that we see returning, especially, and try to bring them in so they can take benefits of becoming returning guests. They usually end up inquiring to us anyway.
I'm making that you guys roughly doing around 60% direct, let's say. That's phenomenal. What's the main driver of that?
Well, that was a plan that I had from the get. I kind of outlined a strategic business launch for myself, which was that I didn't want to be OTA dependent. From a business perspective, and especially what I learned being raised by Microsoft, if you will, right, from a marketing and product perspective is, why would I pay somebody else money to sell my product if I can sell my product myself? Looking at the overall planning of knowing that you needed to rely on the OTAs at least to launch my business, right? I kind of outlined I want to be not off, but transition and pivot to adding direct booking within the first 3 months of my business. So the way that I outlined and was able to scale quite quickly is I went from 2 to 6 to 9 units in my first 90 days. So going into my 90th day, I had already outlined my plan to hire my overseas team. And I brought my same strategy in that I used in technology for over 2 decades in hiring and scaling hundreds of engineers and engineering teams. I brought that same strategy with me, and that has served me very well. So I scaled that team from 90 days. Then we were at 18 units within 9 months and between 2 states. So we started in Dallas and expanded to Arizona. So we were operating in Dallas and Phoenix and Glendale, Arizona at the point in time. And so that strategy and building the operations team is what really allowed me to scale and then step out quite quickly of my own business. My operations team runs very well. My original business manager and first 2 hires that I hired when I first started are my 2 top employees today. One is my business manager, and he's grown and has been elevated since day one. And the other one is our lead. And what she's learned from me in the time that she's been working with me, as a matter of fact, she now purchased and owns her own STR in the Philippines.
I assume you have to let go of a lot of stuff, hand over the reins wherever you can. What do you think is important for you to keep control of? Are you still the person that goes out and wins the arbitrage deals? What are you not giving up?
So that is pretty much what I do. Aside from the fact that my team is in the Philippines, right, with the exception of the handful of on-site people local that I have here in Texas, that is the one thing that I do still hold on to today is where we're going to do business. I'm very specific about what the properties look like, where they're at, what the look and feel is like when you're there, especially after what I've learned in the last 3 years of being in business. So I'm very particular with that. My team knows what I'm looking for very well. So when we are looking to go and expand and looking for new properties, they are able to actually start to identify online the likelihood of the ones that I would like to target for me to go and look at. So they do play a big role in that. They'll essentially pull together my lead list for us to go and look at in person. And then I go in person and vet those properties, do the property tour, see how they are, the look and feel is, because I want them to operate in an operational way very specifically. Or I need to pivot and put in a new type of process if we don't already have one in place. So I want to see that myself firsthand. So when we do expand, I go and find those properties, vet the properties. I start the initial relationship with the property management team on site. Relationship management is very big to me. I find relationship management and networking gets you much further in business and in life in general than just transactional relationships. So I try to build that first layer of relationship with the on-site management so they know kind of who I am and how my business is. I help them understand how my business works. And then once we go live, I kind of exit stage left and hand them off to my team. And that's who manages the relationship and everything moving forward.
As an industry, in the STR industry, do you think it's harder now to find deals? Or is it the same? Is it about knowing where to look? Than it was when you started, I mean,
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of a blend, actually. So I started right after, or right still during the pandemic, right? I started in 2022, at the beginning of 2022. So people were still a little standoffish, even just trying to go and conversate, right? Some people were still wearing masks, things of that nature at that point in time. They were a little standoffish, but people were also desperate a bit for business because so many people had a lot of vacancies from people that had lost jobs and things like that just from the pandemic happening as well. So people were a little more open to the conversation. Nowadays, what's interesting is that the conversations, I wouldn't say have gotten harder. I'd say they've gotten more confused. So there's a lot of inaccurate perception of what a quote unquote Airbnb business is. I am not an Airbnb business. And as somebody that helps educate this industry, that's something that I try to help educate people as well, right? You're not an Airbnb business. Airbnb is an online travel agency. I am not an online travel agency. I am a corporate housing hospitality company. So, it's inaccurate reference in general, which is really frustrating because the word, the company name has unfortunately become like a tainted word, if you will. If a company or property management company hears Airbnb and they don't have the right understanding of what a short-term rental is, or what that model is, they immediately, we don't do Airbnb, and like slam the door, so it's kind of a frustrating situation right now. I go in and lead with, we're a woman and minority owned, local business. We are a corporate housing hospitality company. We are, looking to expand our portfolio and partner with a property, that has similar values, things of that nature. Is kind of how we lead into it. And oftentimes the next question is, oh, well, are you an Airbnb business? And my answer is no. We are not an Airbnb business. This is what we do. These are the benefits that we can provide, by partnering with your business and your property. And I kind of try to spin it away from that particular topic, and provide the values of partnering with them and try to understand what the challenges are that they're having at that particular property so that we can try to come from it from a perspective of solving their pains versus just, let us into your property type of a conversation.
Very, very interesting. Tell me, you have built in a relatively short amount of time, you've built a really successful business in the industry. Do you see your future as being in the short-term rental, mid-term rental space? Or are you with us for life, or have you got an exit strategy?
I think everybody in smart business always has an exit strategy, right? Because you never know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow in the world, especially these days, So, exit strategy, always got a plan of an exit strategy if I needed to sell or, close down. That is one of the benefits of an arbitrage model, right? You're not asked out a lot on a loss if you needed to exit stage left suddenly. You close out the leases, roll out your closet, sell the furniture, and you're out. So, that's a nice way that you can pivot quickly. But outside of that, my plan is to, get us back to a point where we're a little over 20 units again, primarily serving where where our clientele is, and to ultimately start a boutique hotel chain. Or not, I won't say chain, line, if you will.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm sure along the way you've made mistakes. You will have done in building the business. Any that you wish, anything you would do differently if you went back, or are they all mistakes that have led you to where you are today?
So as a coach and an educator, I'm a big fan of mistakes, right? If we don't make mistakes, we can't learn things and apply those learnings and not repeat those mistakes. Hard lessons, man, have had quite a few as becoming an entrepreneur, being over 2 decade long and raised as a corporate employee, doing the full pivot transition to 100% entrepreneur was a bit of a shock and it's a bit of a lonely transition you learn, as well. So, one of the things that I will say is, especially in arbitrage, or in general, is don't put all your eggs in one basket, which I'm not a person that tends to do that anyhow. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned and had to pivot quickly was in our year and a half, I had partnered with a property investor. If you're doing arbitrage, and you have somebody that wants to buy multifamily and you're not ready to do that, and you can partner with them, it can be a perfect harmonious relationship because they buy and you give them occupancy. Their property stays valuable. You get what you need. It's a win-win. I thought I had found a great investor to do that with. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is it allowed us to scale quickly. And then I lost 98% of my business and portfolio in less than 45 days. So he up and sold all of our properties pretty much overnight and gave us a 45-day notice to vacate and dissolved our leases.
Wow.
So that was a very hard and harsh and very expensive immediate loss and pivot. I went from 22 units down to 2 in less than 60 days. It was a very, very large financial loss, and a very hard learning. But, less than 90 days later, I turned around and pivoted my business. I drained my personal life savings and got us back to 10 units within less than 6 months.
Wow. Big, hard learning there, right?
Yes.
Was there a moment in that you thought about quitting?
Well, considering that I was in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a lot of moments that I considering Thelma and Louising off the desert, walls a few times. It's a loss like that hits a lot harder when it's your own personal hardworking finances than, an investor or a loan that, gave you the cash for that. When it's, that your backup bank that you've been building for 2 decades and now that has gone poof and you realize that you have no backup plan left now, it hits a lot harder. So I actually drove over to San Diego to my friend that got me into the industry, and spent a month with her over there, doing yoga, doing some wellness, doing some, letting her kind of beat the crap out of me and get me get me back to my normalcy. So I thank Angela for that a ton. And I came back to Texas July 1st, and this happened in April. So I lost my portfolio in April, spent May in San Diego, came back to Texas in June and had units July 1 and started my relaunch all over again, in a short time. So it was very hard. I, wallowed in my loss and my lows for 3 to 4 weeks and then, pulled my big girl panties up and got right back to it.
Love it. I mean, I don't love that happened, but I love that you got back on the horse, right? That you jumped back on the horse, and it's amazing.
Yeah. That was kind of the moment, the reality moment where I learned and said to myself, no, Jenny, you are born to be an entrepreneur. So just get your shit picked up and get right back to it.
How now do you blow off steam at the end of the day? How do you get away from it?
Well, now I just skim Slack and see what my team's been having to deal with at the end of the day, which is really great.
Fantastic. Jenny, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was great to do this.
And I'm excited because we get to do this again in person in April.
Yes. Yes, we do.
So here we go. All right. Thank you, Jenny. Until next time.